A grand jury in New York is reportedly hearing evidence in the case against suspected gunman Luigi Mangione in the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione isn't due in court again until December 30th, but Governor Kathy Hochul is already prepping for his extradition.
State has an important role to play to make sure that he is extradited from Pennsylvania, where he's being held in Altoona, Pennsylvania, bringing him back to the city of New York so he can go through the criminal justice system. The DA's office in Manhattan is still working on putting together the charges. They must be ironclad. They're making sure they don't make any mistakes, and I appreciate the effort. As second that happens, I will be able to issue a warrant for extradition.
Okay, so a little explainer there. So Mangione's defense attorney can fight the extradition even though the NYPD has evidence linking Mangione to the deadly shooting. Criminal defense attorney Bernarda Villalona joining us now to walk us through the next stages of the legal process. So great to have you here, Bernarda. I want to talk about the court dates because it can get complicated, right? Because there's the case in Pennsylvania. That court date was pushed back to the 23rd. That was pushed back from the 23rd to another week, and that could delay the whole process of getting him here to New York, right?
No. So at this point, in terms of what's going on, the case is being presented to the grand jury. So ultimately, that's a different lane. But when we're talking about Pennsylvania, remember, he still has Pennsylvania criminal charges.
Right.
I used to be a prosecutor in Pennsylvania. So in terms of those criminal charges, if they move along, he's entitled to a preliminary hearing on those charges. But aside from that, they're also dealing with the extradition. And the defense counsel in Pennsylvania has said that he's going to fight extradition. In order to fight extradition, he has to formally put in his paperwork within 14 days in order to fight that extradition. So I'm not concerned about the change in dates because things are moving how they're supposed to be moving.
Okay, they can happen simultaneously, right?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Okay.
So let's be clear about what the grand jury is doing, because I think people at home may not understand that. In order to charge with first-degree murder, a grand jury has to indict. Is that correct?
So in terms of the charges in this case, as of now, it's going to be murder in the second degree. Now, people get freaked out. They're like, well, why not murder in the first degree? New York, the murder in the second degree, when you read the elements of it, it's technically the murder in the first degree in other jurisdictions. Murder in the second degree has to deal with intent to cause the death of another person and causes the death of another person. In terms of murder in the first degree, you have to fit within a narrow class of individuals. Or you're a judge, or you're a police officer. In terms of were you attempted to commit a kidnapping, or terrorism, were you trying to commit some form of terrorism, and then you'll be charged with murder in the first degree. But that's not the case as of now in this case. Grand jury is going to be hearing evidence as to murder in the second degree.
As of now.
As of now.
So the charges could be upgraded.
Yes, they can change, but let's just be clear. In New York, there's not the death penalty. So when we're talking about murder in the first degree and murder in the second degree, murder in the second degree, the maximum sentence is 25 years to life. Murder in the first degree, it's life without the possibility of parole. That's the difference in terms of sentencing.
Right, so that's why somebody might look at that and say, well, why isn't it first degree? But to Cala's point, is it rare to have the grand jury hear evidence when it hasn't even brought here to New York yet?
No, not at all. And I was a prosecutor here in New York for 13 years. 10 of those years I was a homicide prosecutor, and we have presented cases to the grand jury without the body being in the state for several reasons. If you have some idea of where the body is, and here we know that he's in custody in Pennsylvania, you want to present the case to the grand jury, because what you want to do is try to secure an indictment so you can use that indictment that there's probable cause to believe that he committed this crime, and you can use it as a part of the governor's warrant to get the body back to New York.
So that would help with the extradition process.
Absolutely.
So that is the point of. So I think a lot of people are wondering, how are you able to fight extradition if you have all this evidence against him?
Yeah.
So in terms of extradition, it's a different process. Extradition is what the prosecution has to show to the judge that this is the person that the state is looking for, that this is Luigi Mangione. So that's pretty much what the extradition hearing is going to be about. They'll put some evidence as to what the crime is, but it's not prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt at that hearing.
And when you looking ahead now, just to potential trials and picking up a jury, and you always say, it's going to be tough to pick a jury and so on and so forth for every case, but when a case is so high profile as this, and tensions and feelings are so high, and he seems to have some sympathy from a lot of folks out there as well, What does that look like, and how does that factor into a jury selection?
Well, jury selection, of course, is going to be difficult. It's usually difficult in any high-profile case. Hey, look, this happened on December 4th, and we have people on both sides as to whether he's guilty, not guilty, as to whether he's justified in this killing. So you have those issues, but ultimately, when you select a jury, you question each one of those jurors, and you have to see whether they can be fair and impartial despite of what they've heard in the news, because it's very difficult to be like, I've never heard of this case by the time the trial happens. So it's not about whether you heard about the case, it's whether despite what you heard, can you be fair and impartial and judge the defendant's guilt based on what's presented inside of the courtroom.
That was going to be my question about that, because I just happened to be called for jury duty recently, and one of the questions is, have you heard about the case? So almost everyone's going to say yes. So that question's almost obsolete. It goes to now a further question of, despite what you heard, can you?
Yeah, and I would be concerned, actually, if I was a prosecutor or defense attorney, if you tell me you've never heard about this case. I'm like, this person is trying to get a jury and probably has a motive in trying to get on this jury. So that's a red flag for me if someone were to say that.
In your career, do you recall an accused gunman, an alleged killer, getting this much sympathy from the public, where people are trying to pay his legal fees saying what he did was justified?
No, I have not encountered something like this. But then again, you have to think, you know, this day and age with social media, this day and age with the internet, with just media in general, is that a lot of cases are getting so much attention that you're getting attention from all around the country. You know, usually back in the day, you get the case, you'll hear it in your local county or probably in that state, but not in a different state. So here, you know, there's so many, there's sympathy on both sides, but the sympathy in terms of we've had our encounters having to deal with medical insurance being denied or not even be able to afford health insurance at that. So I think people are taking out their anger or their emotions and showing it now with this killing, but still it doesn't justify taking the life of another individual.
Right. And we shouldn't glorify that either, but great to have you here, Bernarda. Always great conversation. Thank you kind of doing the explainer. There's so many different avenues of the story.